Hello, everyone. The College Board recently publicly released the free response questions for the 2024 AP US History exam. If you want to see the document, I put the links below. Also, now that it is publicly available, we can discuss it without breaking any rules. So let's first take a look at DBQ from set number 1, and later on I'll post videos for the other DBQ and the SAQs as well. A quick disclaimer, this may not be your DBQ. There are multiple versions of the exam. However, the version that the College Board releases is usually the version that most students received. Okay, let's first take a look at the prompt itself. I think this is a very fair prompt, with the topic being far better than some of the recent previous years that were about citizenship and identity. With this prompt, we are going from the end of the Revolutionary War to a fairly arbitrary date of 1840. Most students start their essays out with contextualization, so let's begin our analysis there. With contextualization, you want to discuss broader developments that relate to the topic of the prompt. Technically, it can be done before, during, or after the prompt, but I like to focus on immediately before the time period and a little bit into the time period of the prompt. So here's what I first thought of as good context. Keep in mind that you could definitely have other evidence for context than what I have here. So I went as far back as the Revolutionary time period and those Enlightenment ideals present in the Declaration of Independence. Then continuing on discussion of how those ideals were seen in the first national government, the Articles of Confederation. Then I think you could have had a great discussion around the adoption of the Constitution and the compromises around the Constitution, especially the 3/5 compromise and passage of the Bill of Rights. You could also discuss Hamilton and Jefferson's debates around what type of new nation this would be, a loose organization of independent states or a country with a strong centralized government. I think there could be a lot of great context that spans into the time period of the prompt as well, including the market revolution inventions and innovations, especially the cotton gin. A few of the relevant topics of context could include the Louisiana Purchase, the Second Great Awakening, Clay's American System, the era of the common man, and the growth of slavery, despite the 1808 international slave trade ban. Turning to the thesis now, you had to make an argument based upon the prompt. Another way to think about and evaluate the extent to which style prompt is to ask how much or how great of an influence, change, or effect occurred. In this case, how much did slavery shape society from 1783 to 1840? You need to ask yourself, where did the documents and your background knowledge lead you? Initially, I would have gone with slavery impacted society to a moderate amount. However, after looking at the documents, I think I would have gone with to a great extent and focused my main ideas around the increasing division about the morality of slavery and its spread. For the first document, we have a Massachusetts Supreme Court case involving an enslaved individual. The Chief Justice writes in his opinion that slavery is no longer justifiable based on the newly adopted governing laws of Massachusetts. This document shows that at least in Massachusetts, the view of slavery is changing, and that view is being influenced by the ideals of the Enlightenment and the Revolution. For document 2, I find the source information interesting in of itself. We have a free African-American mathematician and land surveyor writing a letter to Thomas Jefferson, who we know for his hypocrisy of writing such great works of liberty like the Declaration of Independence, but at the same time owning more than 200 slaves. And this is what the author is calling out Jefferson on. This document lends itself to a great opportunity to use any aspect of sourcing. Document 3 has a bit of a time jump from document 2, and I think the Louisiana Purchase could provide some great context for document 3 and fill in the time gap a bit. In this document, we have a newspaper editor discussing his concern about whether Missouri is admitted as a slave or free state. He himself does not take a moral position on slavery, but he is very concerned that the question of whether or not it expands into Missouri may cause a great societal rift. It shows the discussion of slavery itself causes societal division. Based upon what the author discusses, it seems like this document was written right before the Missouri Compromise was passed, so I think the compromise itself could be used as context. The next document is from a South Carolina Baptist minister who makes both a historical and religious justification for slavery. He is attempting to rebuke those who argue for emancipation of slaves. This document can be used to show what is at the time the mainstream view of slavery, especially amongst white Southerners. On to document 5, which is from one of the most well-known abolitionists, William Lloyd Garrison. In this document, he is calling out a fellow citizen, Francis Todd, of his involvement in the slave trade. Garrison is clearly trying to publicly shame Francis Todd. I think there is an interesting juxtaposition with this document and the previous document number 4. Both authors are well-known citizens in their locations, but with completely different views on slavery, showcasing a clear geographical divide on the public views of slavery. In document 6, we have an attendee of an anti-slavery society meeting. This document goes well with document 5, or possibly a religious counterpoint to document 4. This document shows the expansion of abolitionism, in which abolitionist societies have formed with members, meetings, and speeches. And individuals involved with the societies are finding great purpose in the cause of abolitionism. There is also a great context opportunity, linking the document to the Second Great Awakening or participatory democracy. The last document is an image from the American Anti-Slavery Almanac. This is a satire on New York being known as a free state, but yet allowing for enslaved people to be in a state of bondage for up to 9 months. It is definitely critical of the New York policy. This document would go well with document 6, being it is from the American Anti-Slavery Almanac, and showing abolitionist activity. Finally, some pieces of outside evidence, which would be evidence that is not linked to any of the documents at all, and it could go towards aiding an argument. A few things that I thought of that could have been weaved nicely into an essay include a discussion of the fugitive slave provision in the Constitution and the 1808 international slave trade ban. One of the most obvious pieces of outside evidence that I was surprised to not see it covered in any of the documents is content around how the growth of King Cotton shaped Southern society in the time period. Also, bringing up the 1836 gag rule in Congress could have been great outside evidence as well. And finally, discussion of the growth of Northern industry that was in part due to purchasing Southern cotton produced by slaves. Okay, that wraps it up for the first DBQ prompt on the 2024 exam. I plan on doing a couple more videos for other DBQ prompts and the SAQs as well, if I have time. Feel free to leave questions about this DBQ in the comments about what you put on your essay and if it would have gotten the rubric points.